All right, well, I think we can go ahead and get started. I see all of the committee here, and I'll continue to monitor the waiting room and allow people in so you can focus on presenting. I want to go ahead and introduce Sushrayo Misra. He joined our department about 5 years ago after completing his master's in earthquake engineering at IIT Roorkee and had a background in civil engineering from Jadavpur in Calcutta. He's been working as a part of our NIST funded center on risk-based community resilience planning for the last several years. And I am happy to pass the ball to Sushrayo to present today. Just a quick couple of notes on the logistics and format here. He's got about a 40 to 45 minute presentation planned, and we welcome everyone to stay for the presentation, and we'll have questions primarily from the broader audience following that. And then we'll dismiss all of the audience except for the committee members to remain online for further questions. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Sushrayo, and a reminder to everyone to please mute yourself until you ask questions. Go ahead, Sushrayo.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. Paget. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to my committee, and good evening, depending on where you're logging in from. Today I'm going to present my PhD dissertation titled Seismic Resilience of Rail Truck Intermodal Freight Transportation Networks. So here is an outline of the talk that I'm going to give today. I'm going to start with an introduction to my topic, followed by a framework and methodology for my work. I'm then going to talk about some of the key input models that are required to support the framework for resilience analysis, namely fragility modeling, restoration modeling, and a model to schedule the restoration of damaged links of the intermodal network. I'm then going to illustrate the models and concepts presented in this study using a case study example and follow up with conclusions and future work. So to begin with, when we talk about resilience of a system, we typically define it in terms of two quantities: its ability to react to an external stress and its ability to recover in a timely and efficient manner from the effects of that stress. Now, examples of these external stresses could be natural or anthropogenic in nature, and earthquakes are one of the more deadly natural hazards known to mankind, which is the focus of this study. Resilience is typically characterized using the resilience curve, which you see on the left of the screen, which is a plot of functionality on the y-axis versus time on the x-axis. The pre-event functionality of the system is denoted by QR. The time at which the hazard strikes is T0, and at T0, the functionality reduces to Q0. Then with gradual restoration activities, the functionality is recovered in time TR. The post-event functionality loss is given by QR minus Q0, which is a measure of the inherent robustness of the system, and the total recovery time is given by TR minus T0, which is a measure of the rapidity of post-event recovery activities. Now, when we talk about intermodal transport, we basically mean any trip which uses more than one mode of transport to travel from origin to destination. So it could be any combination of rail, truck, rail, ship, etc. Primarily from the point of view of freight transport, a typical rail truck intermodal shipment involves partial transportation of a container by truck and the remainder by train. And the exchange of these containers take place at designated locations within the network, which are known as intermodal terminals. In the light of these definitions, the key components of the intermodal terminal are provided as follows. We have railway tracks and railway bridges which form part of the railway network. We have roadways and highway bridges which form part of the highway network. And we also have intermodal terminals where the physical connection between these two networks takes place. Now, among the various modes of intermodal transport, rail truck intermodal actually occupies a very important place, especially when it comes to inland transport in the United States. And it amounts to around 460 billions of goods flow annually. If we look at the freight flow data from the last 3 5-year cycles, we will notice that there is an upward trend of rail truck intermodal as compared to single mode rail and truck transport. The various factors that are favoring this upward trend are lower operational and environmental costs, greater flexibility of with respect to route choice and mode choices, and also in the improvement of containerization technology, which has aided intermodal transport in the recent years. Now, in the past, we have seen that the components of the intermodal network have suffered damage to major earthquake events. And this can result in potential disruption of functionality, resulting in severe economic and social consequences. Despite the importance of intermodal networks and their potential for seismic damage, existing literature lacks a framework for quantifying the resilience of these systems, incorporating their input damage and functionality models of the various components of the network. Moreover, the existing studies on intermodal network performance under disruption do not account for a modeling strategy that allows the study of the effect of local disruptions on a nationwide or a global scale. In addition to that, there are certain gaps regarding the availability as well as the methodology of some of the input models that I mentioned earlier. So in the light of these key motivations, the major objective of this study is to firstly develop a mathematical framework for quantifying seismic resilience of intermodal transportation networks. Secondly, we want to develop an integrated multi-scale model of the intermodal network. And this will take care of the issue of explicit modeling of regional damages on and its effects on nationwide freight flow. We also want to either develop or identify from literature some of the key input models that are required for this framework. And finally, we want to test the models and concepts developed in the study using a case study example. Now I move to the framework and methodology. So on your screen, you see the entire methodology of seismic resilience analysis of intermodal networks, which I've followed in my thesis. I'm going to explain this in steps. So starting with the left, we start with an input hazard model, which provides estimates of the ground motion intensity measure IM at important locations within the network. In the next step, we require input fragility models, which simulate the physical damage state of the various network components. And these fragility models take as input the intensity measure generated in the previous step. In the next step, we use restoration models to simulate the functionality state of these various network components, both immediately after the hazard event as well as a different instance of time during the duration of recovery. And these restoration models take as input the damage states that are simulated in the previous step. Now that we have a functionality state of each network component at various instances of time, we can then project it to a network level state at each instant of time. And performing adequate network analysis, we can arrive at estimates of network functionality QT at various instances of time. For this, we require another key input model, which is a model that informs the sequence in which the various damaged components of the network are repaired. Finally, we integrate the functionality QT over the time domain from T0 to TR to obtain an estimate of the resilience. In addition to the framework itself, the key contributions of this study lie in developing some of these key input models, which I'm going to discuss in the next few slides. So to begin with the intermodal network modeling, I'd first like to introduce the very basic concept of a network modeling. So here I'm showing a very simple hypothetical 4-node network, which has 4 links, and the lengths of each of these links are provided. The connectivity between the nodes in a network is represented by means of an adjacency matrix. An adjacency matrix essentially encodes the connectivity between the various nodes. The number of rows and columns in an adjacency matrix is identical to the number of nodes in the network, and any element Aij is 0 if there is no link between node I and node j, and it takes a non-zero value of Wij if there is a link between node I and node j. Now this non-zero value Wij could be just 1 in case of the unweighted adjacency matrix, or it could take the value of some attribute of the link, for example, link length, link travel time, link travel cost, etc. Here I'm showing the example of a weighted adjacency matrix that takes the link length as the weighting function. Now I move to the integrated multi-scale modeling approach for the intermodal network. So in this case, the idea is that the various layers of the intermodal network, namely the highway network and the various railway networks belonging to independent railroad companies, will be modeled in a single adjacency matrix structure. So we start with the national highway network, which occupies a block diagonal position in the global adjacency matrix. And similarly, we add the different railway networks belonging to independent railroad companies and add them as block diagonal structures to this global adjacency matrix. Now, so far, all of these networks have been modeled on a national level and on a city scale. So which means that in these networks, each node is denoted by a city or a region, which is a potential origin or destination of freight transport. In the next step, we establish links between these independent layers. So these links, a link between a railway and a highway network could represent locations of intermodal terminals where these two networks physically interact. Similarly, there can be links between the different railroad networks representing shared trackage rights between multiple railroad companies. Now, in addition to the network in the national scale, we also require a more detailed model of the network in the regional scale in order to fully and explicitly model the effect of damages in a particular region. So for that, we have a high resolution network model at the regional scale, which we add as the final block diagonal element to this matrix. Note that the regional scale network also has multiple layers, just like the national scale, which I'm not showing in detail here. And finally, the regional scale network is connected to the national scale by joining the boundaries of the region with the neighboring nodes in the national network. In the regional network, we are modeling all the key components, namely bridges, roadways, railway tracks, and intermodal terminals as components of the network. So now I move to the first key input model for this study, which is the fragility models of the various network components. When we talk about fragility models, we basically mean a model that provides the probability of physical damage of any of these components, given either the intensity measure of hazard, as you can see in the first type of fragility function, which is the more basic univariate fragility function. And in the second type, the fragility is defined for a given intensity measure IM and a vector X of the structure specific parameters. And this is known as a parameterized fragility function, which is the more advanced form of fragility functions. The output of the fragility function is a physical damage state of the network component. So it could provide the damage state of a bridge component like a column or a roadway, etc. Now, if we look at the existing fragility models for the network components, one of the striking things that stand out is that there are no existing studies on railway bridge fragilities for typical bridge classes in the United States. So that is one of the things we are trying to address in this study. Moreover, HAZUS, which is a technical document that contains the vulnerability and risk models of various critical infrastructure in the United States, recommends that highway bridge fragility should be used as a proxy for railway bridges. This assumption needs further testing because railway bridges have their unique design details and structural characteristics. So that's one of the things that we are also exploring in this study. Moreover, if you look at the methodology of fragility analysis, the existing state-of-the-art methodology is to use the parameterized fragility functions where there are multiple inputs to the function. So the existing parameterized models use predictor selection techniques which are not robust to correlated predictors. So there can be cases when there is pairwise correlation between certain predictors, and the existing techniques for predictor selection cannot handle these problems. So in the light of these gaps, here is the proposed framework for fragility analysis that we have used in this study for railway bridges. We start with generating realizations of bridges by sampling from the various bridge parameters, and we paired them up with a realization of ground motion. In the next step, each of these bridge ground motion pairs is modeled using OpenSeas, an open source finite element program, and nonlinear dynamic analysis of each of these realizations is carried out to evaluate the peak structural response in each bridge component. In the next step, we train a surrogate demand model to predict Z, which is the peak response of the bridge component as a function of the input intensity measure IM and the bridge parameters X. Next, we use the predictions of the surrogate demand models to generate further samples for fragility analysis. The final form of the fragility function is in the form of the logit function that you can see here. And we develop fragility models both at the individual bridge component level as well as at the bridge system level. The key methodological advancement that we are proposing here is the use of elastic nets regularization for a preliminary screening of predictor variables. And the advantages of this I'll show in the next slide. So when we talk about elastic nets regularization, I'm showing it with an example here. On the left of the screen, you see a typical regression problem where Z is the quantity to be predicted, X is the vector of predictors of the model, and theta is the coefficient of predictors that we learn from the data. In a typical least square regression setting, we typically solve the equation considering only the first term, which is the sum of squared error term. In regularized regression, we add a penalty term to this first term. The penalty term could be of various forms. If we only add the first term in the penalty term, which is the summation of theta j square, it is known as ridge regression. And if we add only the second term, it is known as lasso regression. Now, both ridge and lasso regression have their own benefits, which I'm not going into the details of right now. But there is another another regularization technique known as elastic nets, which combines the benefits of both lasso and ridge. And the benefits are as follows. Firstly, it provides a reliable predictor selection technique, ensuring sparse metamodels, even if there is pairwise correlation between some of the predictors. It controls model overfitting to a large extent and ensures good predictive accuracy of the models. As an example, I'm showing here the trained seismic demand metamodels for the two main bridge classes that we identified. We see that the R square, that is the coefficient of determination, which is a measure of the goodness of fit of these models, is relatively high, showing good predictive accuracy. Also, there is good agreement between the training and the testing R square, which shows that the models are not generally overfitting. Now I'm showing the railway bridge fragility functions in comparison with the existing highway bridge fragility functions. So I'm comparing the railway fragilities with firstly the empirical fragility functions proposed in HAZUS and the highway bridge fragility functions proposed by Nielsen and Deroche, which we are using in this study. In order to project the multivariate or the parameterized fragility function on a 2D plane, we are considering a typical multispan simply supported steel girder railway bridge, for which the other parameter values take constant values. Now, from the comparison, we see that the existing HAZUS recommendation results in highly conservative estimates. And as we move from slight to higher damage states, the difference between the railway and the highway bridge fragilities become more pronounced. This basically shows that railway bridges are less vulnerable to damaging earthquakes, and they're even less vulnerable to large damage states. So this establishes the need for these new fragility functions. In the next step, I'll show the restoration models of the various intermodal network components. So when we talk about restoration models, they take as input the damage state obtained from the fragility functions, and they provide two different outputs. Firstly, a probability of a particular decision of closure and the corresponding duration of closure. When we talk about closure, it could either mean a complete closure, as you can see in this image, or different types of partial closure, such as a lane restriction and a speed restriction. Now, typically, restoration models in literature are data-driven models, and this data can be obtained either from reconnaissance from past events or based on expert opinion surveys. Now, if we study the reconnaissance reports from past events, we will notice that most of these focus on the immediate post-event closures, and this data cannot really be utilized to characterize the full time evolution of functionality. As an example, I'm showing here the existing HAZUS restoration models, which are based on very few responses. And in these restoration models, the input is a bridge level damage state and the output is a mean and a standard deviation of the estimated restoration time. These are not practical estimates because when a bridge inspector actually inspects the site, they see damage to individual bridge components and not at a system level, and it also does not provide estimates of different levels of closure. Moreover, for the intermodal terminals, HAZUS contains restoration models for each component and subcomponent of those terminals, but there is a lack of a supporting model that illustrates the functional dependencies between these various components. So these are the basic research gaps that we are looking to address in this study. To address these gaps, here is a summary of the work that we have done in this area. Firstly, we carried out an expert opinion survey to collect data on restoration of highway bridges, roadways, railway bridges, and railway tracks. And using the data from this survey, we propose new restoration models for highway bridges and railway bridges. For roadways, we use the survey data to update the existing restoration models in Argyrodis in Kenya using Bayesian updating. And for intermodal terminals, we propose a new fault tree model to interpret the functionality of terminals as a whole in terms of the functionality of its components. The proposed bridge restoration model has this form where the inputs are now a damage state to each bridge component instead of a system level damage state. And the output is firstly a decision and secondly a duration of both complete closure and different types of partial closure. These models can be trained with either expert opinion survey data or with empirical data from the past events. In our case, we trained our models with a combination of survey and expert opinion data depending on availability. So here I'm showing the forms of the trained restoration models for bridges. Firstly, for modeling closure decisions, we are using decision trees, which is a class of machine learning models. Decision trees perform classification by creating sequential axis aligned splits in the dataset, and they work fairly well for datasets where the predictors are categorical. So in this case, we have predictors such as damage state to the individual bridge components like abutments, bearings, and columns. And the output of these models is a probability of closure. The models are simple, interpretable, and they provide reasonable predictive capability for these types of datasets. For modeling durations of closure, we are using an approach known as clustered random forest modeling. So firstly, when we say random forest modeling, it's really an advancement of the decision tree modeling. It uses an ensemble of decision trees to make predictions instead of a single decision tree. Moreover, we first divide the dataset into separate clusters based on an unsupervised clustering technique such as k-means clustering, and we fit separate regression models to each cluster, like the example figure that you see here. The resulting models reduce the variance of the predicted closure durations in comparison to a single decision tree model used for regression. So here I'm showing the proposed fault tree model that relates the functionality between the various components and subcomponents of the intermodal terminal. In this model, the rectangular boxes denote the various subcomponents of the terminal, and the two oval boxes on the top illustrate the two key functionalities that are performed by the intermodal terminals, namely storage of containers and transfer of containers. In this study, we are primarily interested in the transfer of containers. The various nodes are connected by means of AND and OR connectors. A typical AND connector such as this means that for the parent node to fail, both of the children must fail. A typical OR connector such as this means that for the parent node to fail, any of the children can fail. For each of these subcomponents, the individual restoration models are obtained from HAZUS. So finally, I come to the last key input model that is used in this study, which is a model to schedule restoration of damaged links in the intermodal network. So if we look at the existing literature, here are the key drawbacks of existing studies. Firstly, most of the existing studies in this area use a city scale model, that is each node is in the network is modeled as a city, which prevents us from explicitly studying the effect of regional damage on the network, as I mentioned before. Damage and reduced functionality of the different components of the network are not explicitly modeled as a result of this modeling approach. And the objective function does not include the perspective of different stakeholders. Typically in an intermodal transport, multiple stakeholders are involved. For example, the owner of the different facilities such as bridges, railway tracks, etc., and the freight shipper. And this is not necessarily accounted for in the previous studies. We are proposing a new bi-objective mixed integer programming model, which evaluates the following. It evaluates the optimal resource allocation strategy in terms of repair crew under a limited budget. It estimates the corresponding evolution of network link functionality states with time. And it also estimates the optimal flow in the different network links and its evolution with time. The stated gaps are addressed by using firstly a multi-scale model for explicitly modeling the component damage as part of network, as I mentioned before. And also using an objective function that attempts to minimize the total cost coming from the perspective of various stakeholders, as I will show in the future slides. So here are the different input parameters for the optimization model. And on the right, I am defining the sets that determine the boundary of the various indices used in these parameters. Now I'm defining the various parameters, the input parameters of the model. Without going into the details of these definitions, what I'd like to highlight here is that the various input parameters are obtained from the input data sets and models that are used in the study. The output of the restoration scheduling model are the following decision variables. The key decision variables I'd like to highlight are the first one, that is XIJT, which provides an estimate of the link network link flow in terms of the number of TEUs, where TEU means the 20-foot equivalent unit, which is a standard unit of intermodal freight transport. YBT denotes the functionality of network component B at time T. Delta YBT denotes is an indicator variable that indicates if repair crew is working on network component B at time T. So now I'm showing the objective function of the optimization problem. This is a work that we are doing in collaboration with Dr. Andres Gonzalez of the University of Oklahoma. And this objective function is based on previous papers by the authors. The objective function primarily contains 4 different cost functions. The first term, which denotes the cost of repair, is the cost from the owner of the facilities. And then last 3 terms, O2, O3, and O4, denote the cost of the freight shipper. In order to demarcate the cost of owner from the cost of freight shipper, we include this weighting parameter alpha. And by changing the value, alpha ranges between 0 and 1. And by changing the value of alpha, we can actually tune the problem to either the owner's perspective or the shipper's perspective. The various constraints of the optimization model are as follows. We have flow conservation constraints. We have constraints that link the network functionality with various repair actions. We have constraints regarding the capacity of each network link, and we have constraints on resource availability. So finally, I'd like to present a case study example to illustrate some of the concepts discussed previously. So for this case study, I'm using a testbed intermodal network located in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is located in the southwestern corner of Tennessee, and the Memphis Metropolitan Statistical Area, also known as MMSA, consists of 9 counties, which cover not only Tennessee, but also the neighboring states of Mississippi and Alabama. Memphis serves as a hub of freight traffic in the central and southeastern United States. It consists of a total of 355 bridges, 6 intermodal terminals, and 13 truck terminals. We are studying the effect of a regional hazard event. For this, we are generating a scenario earthquake of magnitude 7.7, having a point source located in the nearby New Madrid seismic zone. I'm going to present the case study using 2 cases. In the first case, I'm going to evaluate the functionality and resilience of the network for different freight shipments moving in and out of Memphis using 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations. The sufficiency of using 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations for this purpose was tested using a convergence study, which I have provided in the appendix of my thesis. In addition, one key assumption in this in the first case study is that we are assuming a random scheduling model for restoring the different damaged components of the network. So in this slide, I'm showing the evolution of component functionality, firstly for the bridges in the network, secondly for the roadways and railway tracks, and thirdly for the intermodal terminals. So I'm going to play these videos that show the evolution of functionality from between 0 days, which indicates the time when the hazard strikes, to 365 days from the hazard event. So initially, we see that a lot of the bridges located near the center of Memphis have high probabilities of damage exceeding 0.5. And when we play the video, we will see that in 365 days, most of these bridges are repaired. If you look at the roadway and railway track functionality, we will see that most of these have very low probabilities of failure even at time 0. So we cannot see much change over the 365 days. For the intermodal terminals, we see that initially most of these terminals have very high damage states. And as we play the video, we see that very quickly these intermodal terminals regain functionality. So just to illustrate something, if I move the cursor to 60 days, for each of these cases, we will see that by 60 days, a lot of the bridges are still damaged, whereas the roadways and railway tracks hardly undergo any damage. And the intermodal terminals, which were initially damaged, have mostly been restored by this time. So from this, we can tell that the initial loss of network functionality is primarily dictated by the intermodal terminals, because most of them are undergoing severe damage in the initial stages. And the long-term restoration of functionality is dictated by mostly the bridges, because some of the bridges take a long time to restore. So now I'm going to evaluate the functionality and resilience of the network. In order to evaluate functionality, I'm using a metric that was initially proposed by Miller-Hooks et al. And we are modifying this metric for application to intermodal for our particular example. So in this metric, functionality QT is expressed as the expected post-event network throughput by an estimate of the pre-event network throughput, where the network throughput DKT can be expressed as the reciprocal of IKT, IKT being a travel impedance function, which could mean the cost of shipment K along the network at time T, or it could even mean the travel time for shipment K or travel distance. And it is weighted by the value of the particular shipment in order to provide higher importance to high value shipments. So this plot shows the evolution of network functionality for the 1000 Monte Carlo simulations that we have performed with the mean and standard deviation bounds. We can see from this plot that by about 60 days, 99% of the network functionality is restored because most of the intermodal terminals are restored by this time, whereas the remainder of the restoration activity happens between 60 and 365 days, when some of the bridges which have severe levels of damage are restored. Now, if we integrate each of these functionality profiles in the time domain, we will get a histogram of resilience metrics for each of these cases. The mean resilience computed from this is 0.72 with a standard deviation of 0.02, which basically means that the network operates at an average functionality of 72% over the recovery duration of 1 year. Now I'm coming to the second case of the case study demonstration. In the second case, I will demonstrate the preliminary results from the optimal restoration scheduling model. I'd like to point out here that this is still ongoing work which we have started very recently. And in the current stage, we are going to demonstrate the results of the optimal scheduling model for a single shipment that originates in Los Angeles, California, and ends in Memphis, Tennessee. For now, for simplicity, we are assuming that only bridges are damaged. So we are ignoring the damages to other components in the network. And we are also ignoring partial closures, assuming that the bridges only undergo complete closure. So I have two videos playing simultaneously here. On the left, I'm showing the optimal repair crew assignment strategy. And on the right, I'm showing the corresponding evolution of bridge functionality with time. So we will see that after 365 days, the route is completely restored. The optimization model is targeting only those bridges which lie along the route of this shipment, which is why some of the bridges are not chosen for restoration even after 365 days. The resulting functionality profile obtained from the optimal scheduling model is, as expected, better than the random scheduling approach, resulting in a shorter recovery time. So this basically tells us that the proposed optimal scheduling model is a promising tool for post-event decision making, and also as a key input model in estimating seismic resilience of intermodal networks. So now I come to the conclusions of this study. So the key contributions of the study can be highlighted as follows. Firstly, we propose the first fragility models for railway bridges leveraging elastic nets regularization. This allows us to model parameterized fragility functions and take care of mutual correlation between predictors if they exist. Secondly, we are providing the first restoration models of various components of the intermodal network that relate observed damage to practical estimates of functionality instead of a blanket percentage functionality at different instance of time, as was the case in existing literature. Thirdly, we are providing the first probabilistic framework for assessing resilience of intermodal networks, which incorporate the physical damage and functionality models of each of the network components as inputs. In this slide, it's important to mention that the proposed multi-scale network modeling approach allows the explicit modeling of damage and functionality in intermodal terminals, which is a novelty of the study. For modeling the functionality of intermodal terminals, we have proposed a new fault tree model that illustrates the different functional linkages between the constituent components and subcomponents of the intermodal terminal. Moreover, the proposed integrated multi-scale modeling approach enables us to study the effect of local disruption on a global scale. For this, we do not have to use a full-scale network model, which is highly computationally demanding. Finally, we are proposing a mixed integer programming model that evaluates the optimal assignment of restoration crew and the allocation of freight traffic by minimizing the cost from the perspective of various stakeholders. So in this context, the future work from this study can be summarized as follows. Firstly, the proposed fragility methodology may be extended to other systems and structures where the similar problems of predictor correlations exist. Secondly, by leveraging the recent advancements in post-event inspection and data acquisition techniques, more robust restoration models can be developed for each of these the network components. Thirdly, we are currently working on improving the optimal scheduling model to account not only for single shipment flow, but also for multiple shipment flow, and account for partial closures in addition to complete closures, which has not been done before. I'd like to mention here that we have successfully implemented this for a small scale network, but we are still working on how to implement this for the actual intermodal network that we are studying. The models proposed here represent the definition of resilience mostly from a physical infrastructure dimension. However, resilience can also be defined from a social and economic point of view. So one of the key goals of the future is to integrate the physical, social, and economic aspects to have a fully integrated decision model which incorporates all these three dimensions. And this can be done within InCode, which is an open source tool for community resilience modeling currently being built. The models and data sets that are from this study are ultimately going to go into this open source tool in the future. Finally, the proposed models can be extended to alternate modes of transportation and alternate hazards apart from earthquakes. For example, to coastal hazards and intermodal transport that involves maritime transport, etc. So finally, I would like to acknowledge my advisor, Dr. Paget, for her continued support and mentorship. All my committee members, Dr. Duenas, Dr. Nagaraja, Dr. Subramaniam, for their inputs that helped shape this thesis. All my collaborators, Andres, Kameshwar, Dr. Barbosa, Dr. Webb, and Dr. Peek. All my friends for their support and help whenever needed. And finally, last but not the least, this work would not be possible without the financial assistantship of the NIST research grant. With that, I thank you all for participating in my defense, and I open the floor to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushreo. We don't have the pleasure of the typical applause in the audience today.
Yes.
Sushreo, and I guess you wanted to say also thank you to your family, right?
Yeah, of course.
Very, very last but not least.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, let's open the floor to questions then, and I particularly like to encourage questions from the audience.